If you are overqualified and underpaid as a heart-centered healer, coach, or expert online, then today I'm going to share with you how you can command what you're worth as an expert. I'm John Patrick Mueller. I used to be a Buddhist monk, and I grew an online business to $5, $10, $25, $35, and sometimes $40,000 months. And I've helped many other coaches and healers to do the same, to have 10K days, to have 38K months. And today I'm going to share with you how you, essentially there's one reason why you are overqualified and underpaid, and there's one key that you can do about it. So today I'm going to share with you the one reason, the one key, and then the 3 steps that you can take to stop being underpaid as a heart-centered expert. Okay, and this message is particularly for you if you would call yourself either spiritual or heart-centered or sort of impact-driven or like a light worker, a light leader, a new earth angel, that kind of person. This video is especially for you. Okay, and so let's get into it. I call this the ethical expert's dilemma. So this is the ethical expert's dilemma, and let's talk about it. So basically, what is the reason why somebody might be overqualified and underpaid? The reason is because we are undercommunicated. That's it. That's the reason. We are undercommunicated. Our communication level is smaller than our value level. So your value is much, much higher than your ability to communicate your own value. That's the reason why you're underpaid. Pretty obvious, right? Okay, and so I will share with you things that I've done to have $10,000 and $25,000 days in my business and helping other clients to do similar results. And there's only 3 steps, okay? So the first step are the 8 C's of communication and leadership. Then we have the 7 P's of communication and leadership that are especially good for like written word to influence others to communicate your value. And the first one is better for maybe spoken word and interactions that are live. And then we have the last one, which is the 5 E's, and which is more of the energy that we bring to our communication. Okay, so we're gonna do like live communication, written communication, and then the energy of communication as our main 3 steps. Okay, and so let's go, right? So, and by the way, if you like this video, please take whatever action you wish to follow up. If you wish to get my help to implement this with you in your business, you can schedule a call or whatever you wish. It's available to you. All right. And so we have 8 C's, okay? I've been teaching and applying this framework into my life for years now. I call it the Conscious Leadership Framework, and it works really well on one-to-one calls. It works well when you're writing or texting or showing up in a group. It really works perfect for leadership of any kind. And leadership is very much about communication and boundaries, right? And so here we go. So there's the first 2, there's kind of like 2 groups of 4. So we have the first one, we have connect and context. So connection, creating a connection with someone and setting the context, right? I created a connection in this video by sharing with you something that made it relevant to you. Here's what we're gonna do today. So the connection happened, the rapport happened because the energetic content and the informational content landed on your radar. Okay, so if you want to create a connection with somebody else, you need to have your information land on their radar, and our desires are maybe our strongest radars, our desires and our identity. So if you want to land on someone's radars, you need to land on the radar of their desire and the radar of their identity, which I did, right? This is for you if you're this kind of person and if you want this kind of thing, right? And so that's what you can do to create a connection that builds rapport. It puts you in the same space. Now that's the informational content, but the energetic content is also important, right? There's an energy to it. There's a good energy, there's an uplifting vibration, there's something that feels like there's something valuable here. And so when you show up as a leader, people are gonna judge you based on the first few moments. And you wanna use them to create a connection both energetically and informationally, logically. Okay. The second one is context. You set the context. Now, the context, like a lot of people skip over this one. It's pretty important because let's just say that, Elon Musk or like Marissa Peer, or who's a famous hypnotherapist, or, whatever, name a famous person, right? Oprah, Michelle Obama, anybody. Let's just talk about if someone like this, tweets or makes a social media post about something very unimportant. I bet you that they would get a different type of response than we would get if we posted that, right? And so who we are sets a big context. That's why I shared, I've done this, I've grown my business, I've helped others to do the same, right? So there's a context there, which is like, look, I am a relatable, loving authority in this area of expertise, and that sets a certain context. You can believe me if something that I share falls into this zone that I have some expertise in. I used to be a monk, right? It sets a certain context, right? You can also set a context by sharing a quick, almost like highlight reel of what you've done to present yourself as a relatable expert in the field that you are trying to be a leader in, right? If I walked into a board meeting with a big company and I said, look, I've grown companies this size to, double the revenue every year, year over year, many times in the past. That sets a context where whatever I say next is going to land. Whatever I communicate next will be believable, will be influential, okay? And so that's why the first step is connection and the second step is context. Okay, then we have the third step, which is clarity. Okay, so clarity is, in this context, where we have to set a vision and we have to understand the person's vision that we're talking to, right? And so in the case of clarity, if I'm leading somebody, but we're doing a one-to-one call, I need to get clear on their problem and their vision. Okay, I need to get clear on what's going on in their life right now and where do they want to go. Okay, and so that's what I'll do through asking questions. Now, if I'm doing a group presentation, I will have to have gained that clarity ahead of time through market research or something, or just knowing my client deeply through experience. But I still need to communicate clarity. People need to feel clearly understood. People need to feel clearly understood. There is a famous, what's this guy's name? A famous psychologist in the United States, I think Carl Rogers, I think was his name. He was very famous. He did more observational experiments on human psychology than anybody else. And he tested things scientifically and verified what was it that therapists did that actually worked and what doesn't work. And he found that there's 3 really important things that happen. And if you do these 3 things, it just works. And one of them was that the therapist was able to understand with empathy. If you can convey an understanding with some degree of empathy, like an empathic understanding, even an attempt, I'd say accurate is better, but an attempt at empathic understanding of a person's problem is very, very healing and transformational for somebody. Okay? And so in the context of leadership and communicating your value, we need to express, I'd say, an accurate, like a clear, right? A clear and also an empathic understanding of where the person is at right now and where do they want to go. Okay, this can be done in multiple formats. If you're writing or speaking, then you're going to share it from your own side, but the person will still need to feel understood. You can say, look, if you're at this level, if you're underpaid but overvalued, I really get it. I used to be like that too. I was struggling with this until I learned how to communicate my value. And once my level of communication of value rose just as high as my actual value, then I started getting paid based on my actual value and not just the value that I perceived that other people didn't perceive, because we get paid based on our ability to communicate, not based on our actual value. Unfortunately, but that's the truth. Okay, so this is an example of clarity because I show that I understand both the solution and both the problem and the solution. So in this case, this is your chance in this clarity part where you need to understand their problem mostly, but also where do they want to go, okay? And so that's the third step, is clarity. And you don't really talk about how are you going to get there yet, but you just express that you understand the problem, maybe the root causes of the problem, and that you understand where do they want to go, and you're doing it clearly with empathy. That's number 3. Number 4 is collaboration. Okay, so now that you know a person's vision, or now that you've communicated that you understand their starting place and their destination, now you can find this moment in time in the future that you can collaborate with them on, okay? And so this would be like if I was on a call with somebody, a business owner, and we discovered that that they were stuck because maybe they just didn't really know their message and their offer, and they were struggling. They had so many ideas and they didn't know what to do, and they didn't really know how to use social media properly either for their business. And I said, great. And I figured out, okay, you want to go what? You want to have, $5,000 and $6,000 and $7,000 months. Great, right? And you want to do it with social media, by yourself, selling a service, right? Not a physical product, but you want to sell your own expertise and a service based on your gifts. I'd be like, right. So that is a vision that is in alignment with my vision for what I can do to help somebody. Okay. And so what we did was we found a moment in time in the future that we can collaborate on. And then I present to them a path, which is the next step. But this part of collaboration, all you're doing is finding a moment in time and you're creating an agreement that you guys can collaborate together on that moment. Okay, so for example, if I'm talking to my wife before we got married and we're talking about our values and the things that we both want, and her value was she wanted to get married, and she wanted to get married before we were sexually intimate, which we did, which is great. And she wanted someone who would come to Morocco to be with her here and not make her come to them. And blah, blah, blah. We talked about kids. We talked about career. We found a common vision that we both agreed on. And then we decided to collaborate on that vision together, right? That's collaboration, is finding the vision and creating an agreement with them. Now, if you are an expert, you probably have a field of vision. It almost looks like a V. If like your eyes had like a V coming out from them, like you have got a vision too of what you're particularly good at helping people with, right? Maybe you're a healer, but you're really good at karmic blockages, or maybe you're good at past life trauma. Maybe you're good at inner child work, or maybe all the above. But maybe you're especially good for people struggling with this or this or this, right? And so when you're listening with clarity to discover a person's problem and their underlying causes, you're trying to see if it falls into the field of vision that you would consider yourself an expert in. Like these days, if someone were to, tell me that they wanted Facebook ads done for them and that their whole business revolved around Facebook ads, and someone just asked me recently, a friend who asked me, are you good at Facebook? She jumped on my calendar and she wanted to know if I could help her. And I'm like, I'm not really that good at Facebook ads. Like I used to do it professionally, but only for local businesses. But the game has changed. And when I do online service-based businesses, I don't do it anymore. I'm not your best guy. Like there's going to be somebody better than me for this need, right? And so we use clarity to understand her problem and solution, but it didn't fall into my field of vision for my own expertise. And so there was no collaboration that could happen. I couldn't help her. And I told her that. And this is how you're going to avoid a lot of problems in your business. If you can say, no, this isn't my expertise to somebody, you'll save yourself a lot of problems, right? But if it is in your field of expertise, that's when you enroll them into the vision that you have. But first, you're going to both decide and agree, let's collaborate together on this, right? This is what all sales calls look like. This is what spoken word videos look like, right? If I were to tell you, look, what we're talking about right now, communication is my strength, I can be an asset to you in your business. If your value is higher than your ability to communicate value, I would love to help you, especially if you have a lot of spiritual or like esoteric kind of mystical value that is very difficult to express. I am particularly good at understanding and expressing that type of value better than most people. And so if you fall into that category, that's my expertise. I can help you with your message, and I can help you build a presentation of your message and put it into a sales funnel that can help book you calls with amazing dream clients. If you'd like help with this, book a call below, because I'd love to chat with you about it to see if we're a good fit. That's an example, right? Like I told you my expertise, but I told you the problem and I kind of enrolled you into my vision. And if you want to collaborate with me, if you agree to collaborate on that particular thing, I don't say, look, I can help you with whatever you need in your business, hire me. I don't say that. I say, if you're struggling with this, I can help you with this thing. And if the person says, yes, I want help with that thing, now we're in business, now we can collaborate and work out the details. Okay, so that fourth step is collaborating on the vision, on the combined vision. Okay, number 5 is, and I know this is a lot of information. I'm going quickly in order to keep your attention, but I do recognize it could be a lot to digest. All right, so the 5th step is communication. And in the communication step, that's where you're going to communicate your vision of your path, of the pathway that you can use to take them there. So now that you've agreed upon a destination, now you build them a bridge or a pathway to get there. Okay, so you might say, this is what I do. There's like 5 steps that we follow. The first step is this, the second step is this, the third step is this. And along the way, our kind of secret sauce is this. And this is what we do. Like, this is the path that works for me and my clients. Does that sound good to you? Would you like to take this pathway with us? Right? So you present somebody with a logical pathway to get from where they are to where you both agreed that they want to go. And again, this should fall into your zone of expertise. And mostly you are communicating a pathway that is both customized to them because you just listened to their problem, but it's also coming from your intimate knowledge of how to do it, combined with sort of marketing speak a little bit that like simplifies it for them. Okay, so when you express something in terms of marketing and sales, if it's a marketing or sales presentation, it needs to be a lot more simple than we think it does. And here's the reason why experts have a problem. Actually, the name of this video, called The Expert's Dilemma, the Ethical Expert's Dilemma, is actually like a lot of ethical experts have a difficulty in communicating the value precisely because they're too specific about the process. They're too involved in the process. This is the core of the problem is actually right here. Okay, this is the main reason I'm making this video, is what I'm about to say right now. Okay, so an expert becomes an expert because they become one with a process that gives them results and experiences. Okay, so I became an expert at meditation because I let go of the outcomes. I let go of attachment to the outcome, and I just fell in love with and followed a proven process of improving my meditation experience. And along the way, I gain experience, I gain results, but not because I was looking for experiences and results, is because I became one with a process. I surrendered deeply to a process. That's how you become an expert in anything. Like, can I get an amen on this one, right? This is how you become an expert, is by becoming one with and surrendering to a process while sort of letting go of the outcome or the thought of the outcome or the attachment to the outcome. So all really good experts are masters of a process, and you're very thinking about a process. All your thoughts are so nuanced about a process that you've used to get to where you are. Now, that is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. But somebody who is not as good as you, who is less in tune with the process, would actually be able to sell better than you if they just talk about the results. Because people don't buy a process that sounds difficult and nuanced and complex. They buy results that sound easy, right? People want results that sound easy, okay? And new and fresh. People want results and they want experiences. And the more you talk about the process, often the more you're going to lose people because it will feel too hard or complicated, okay? And so that's the core reason. It's almost like the better you are at something, the more difficult you are at selling it. And here's what I found. Here's how I've realized this. I do this with marketing. I love breaking down marketing and leadership and communication and values and, sales and social media, buyer psychology. I would like to break all these topics down. I've been doing this for a long time. My business has made over 10K months since 2020. Okay, so think of me like in 2021, 2022, like 2023, like I'm a real expert at this. I really go deep, right? I've got myself super, super, super deep. But what I have found, especially in the beginning before I realized this, is if I was ever struggling with communicating my value, with maybe people would hop on sales calls and they wouldn't buy or whatever, I would kind of get frustrated because I'm like, God, I'm so freaking good at this. Why aren't they listening? But then I would take some time off from my business. I would go and take a 3-day weekend to do something else. I would just take time off, go to Miami Beach and just chill or whatever. Or just like maybe get involved in something else besides my business and just like my mind would be somewhere else. And then somebody would come into my world. Maybe I'm on vacation. This happened on vacation, right? Someone came into my world actually on vacation during my first year of business, only like 6 months in. I had my first, at that time, it was an $8,300 day. So $8,300 I made in one day. That was my first 6 months of business. That was the best I had done at that point. Now I've done much more. But at that time, that was good. And it was while I was on vacation, meaning I had just been driving for like 3 or 4 days, like straight. And I just finally got to my destination and people came into my world. My mind is somewhere else. And my ability to communicate in a simple way, just the main parts of what I do and how I help people in a relatable way, was way higher than it normally is because I was removed from the process and I was just thinking about the big picture of the results. Okay, and so I had when you distance yourself from something, you gain perspective on it, right? When you distance yourself from your transformational process, you gain perspective on it and you can see it actually more clearly. You can see, here are my 5 or my 3 or my 7 main steps or parts that I do. Here's the main result that people want and here's the main result people get. But what they don't realize is that when you get this result, it echoes or ripples into your life in these other great ways too. And people are struggling generally with this, but you're able to say it in a big picture, simplified way. And that's because you have perspective, because you're distanced from the process. When we're one with the process, we're so nuanced that we lose people, The only other experts who can see clearly like you will get it, but they're not your ideal clients. Someone who is just as good as you at what you do, where they can see it just like you can, is not an ideal client because they're too far along. They're overripe to be your ideal client. Your ideal clients are people who are not as far along as you. They're not an expert like you are at this thing. And so you cannot communicate with all your expertise because you will lose them every time, and you'll end up surrounded by great collaborators, great peers, but not great clients, okay? And so the ethical expert's dilemma is that we're so in touch with the process that we lose the ability to communicate about the results and about the simplified version of the process, the simplified parts of what you do, the simplified understanding of where they're at and what they're struggling with, the simplified everything else too. Okay, and so in this fifth step of communication, this is where we have previously needed to spend, and this is what I can do with you. I'm very excellent at this part. If you and I talk in our groups or in our one-to-one sessions, I can interview you and kind of pull out your main steps that you take. One of my clients recently shared with me that right after one of my calls with her, I think it was my second, maybe my third one-to-one call with her, she had a sales call immediately afterwards, and she closed them on her first $6,000 sale ever. It was her highest sale that she's ever made. She closed them. She had, I think she got like 5 clients in 1 month at the $5,000 or $6,000, which was her best month in business ever. And this is my first month with her, I believe, my first or second month with her. But that's just in general. During this one was during her first month, and she had just raised her prices to the 5,000 or 6,000. And she told me that everything that came through in our session, all the clarity about what she did, like at the end of the session, she's like, wow, this is what I do. I finally know what I do. Like, she knew it. She just couldn't communicate it as well as she could when we were done with our second, maybe our third call. And then she closed her first $6,000 sale, or whatever it is, $6,000 if they pay on the payment plan, $5,000 in full, I can't remember. But anyway, that's just an example of, like, if we work together, that's the kind of thing I can pull it out of you and give it back to you in a simplified way that is perfect for communicating with your clients. But even if you don't get my help, you need to do this process where you take some time away from your process and you just reflect on it with enough perspective, enough distance to have the right perspective to see only the big picture. And then you communicate it back to somebody. Here's the big picture of what I do. Here's the first main step I take. Here's the second main step. Here's the third main step. Here's the secret sauce. Here's the blah, blah, blah. Here's where we're going, right? And so that is communication. This fifth step I call the communication step, where you're communicating the pathway or your step-by-step process to help them get there, okay? Now the sixth step is catalyzation. And catalyzation is the energy component of communication. So the communication is more of a logical step. You're taking people through the logic, the sequence of how you'll get them there. There's structure, there's sequence, there's certainty. But the catalyzation is where you are connected to the emotion of the result. And when you share it with somebody, you're kind of transmitting the emotion of the result so that you take them up energetically to a higher level, and they actually get to experience the result of working with you in that moment, or at least the energy of it. They get to kind of taste and experience the energy of the result of working with you just through your ability to communicate the process, right? So if I were to explain to you, look, the first thing that we're gonna do is get really clear on your message and offer. And then we're gonna turn that into a presentation. And this presentation is gonna be a mini masterclass, like maybe 25 minutes of a video, maybe 15, where we put it on a sales page and we have people come to that page, and under the page will be your calendar. It'll be some written word. It'll be all your testimonials. and people who watch the video will then decide to book a call and go and apply to work with you. But what happens is you get people on your calls who already know they want to work with you before the call starts. And if somebody isn't a good fit, they'll just kind of vibrate away. They won't even bother booking a call because they don't resonate with the full message, right? And my secret sauce is we get the message right. We are able to get the message right and turn it into a little presentation where people consume it before the call, which means your calls become easy and very effective because you've already got closed 90% of the sale before that call even started. That's what I do. That's what I'm good at. That's what I've helped myself with. That's how I've been able to have $10, $20, $30, $40,000 months with very little effort at some points. Not at all points, but at some points I was dialed in, very little effort because people and my assistant just got people to that video. And then they booked a call and then I closed them. Boom, so easy on 10K packages. And so I'd love to help you do this too if you want. If you're ready, book a call and we'll, right? And so you can see that there's an energy component to this. It's not just, so you're explaining a sequence, but there's an energy component that you sort of activate people with. You catalyze them. You bring them up to speed. You bring them into the energy portal just by communicating, just through your own energy transmission. So they need to get it. They need to energetically get it. They can't just logically get it. They need to energetically be in the flow of your vibration when you're speaking. Okay, so anyway, that's the 6th step. The 7th step is coaching. And so coaching means that when people are enrolled into your vision, they're often going to try to get out of your vision, and you need to enroll them back in through coaching. It kind of means coaching people through their own objections and specifically through their own resistance, right? So we don't have resistance to things that are bad for us. We only have resistance to things that are good for us. We're talking about this type of resistance. This is like an ego kind of resistance, right? It's like a fear-based resistance. We resist things that are good for us, right? Or else we wouldn't call it resistance. And when someone is choosing with their higher self, they're choosing with the best parts of them, they often will have a little ego that tries to pull them out and tells them stories like, oh, you're not good enough for this, you can't do that. Oh, but what about this thing, right? There's always going to be circumstances that will come up that look like they're pulling people away. There's always going to be reasons that come up that will appeal to the ego and maybe even to the logic, but not to their higher self. And it's our job to be able to help a person and kind of coach them back in to making the right choices for them. Now, when you're leading somebody and when you're communicating with someone, we never want to lead them to where we want them to go. We lead them to what is best for them, right? So we have already established that this vision, that this common vision is best for them, and they always have free choice. But it's our job to sort of identify where are they getting pulled out, and through questions. That's why it's called coaching. It's not called hammering, it's called coaching. We ask questions like a true coach, right? A true coach, in the sense of the word, has a flashlight and a mirror, right? So they got the flashlight, they got the mirror, and so you shine light on things that they couldn't see, and you show them things that are helpful for them to see. And that's what coaches really do, is they have a mirror and a flashlight. And so at this stage, you've already communicated everything. They don't really need to know anything else. Now you're just getting them to kind of come back in using the flashlight and the mirror. Like, okay, I hear you on that you have this big trip next month. Do you think it'd be wise to wait until you get back? Because in my experience, there's always something that comes up. Would you think it's a good idea to just get started now? And that way you can start watching some of the videos on vacation, and you can maybe get your first call in before you go. And then after, we can pick it back up. But at least we've made the commitment. Like, how does that sound? So even though that may not have been perfect, it's an example of like trying to like use questions to get people back into the vision. So that's what the 7th step is, coaching. And I can show you more about this when you're in my program. There's a lot. I have a whole 50-minute video on this that I really would love to share, but I'm mindful of time. Okay, and the last step here is to combine. Okay, so now we combine everything from above, right? When you coach people back in, it's good to have mirrors and questions, but also it's good to take things you learned in the clarity step. It's good to take parts of your connection with them that give you strong rapport. So you have rapport, you have all the information from clarity, you have little parts of the pathway that you can communicate, you have your energy of communication. You take everything you've got from all the previous steps and you use it to pull them back into that vision and commit even more to that vision. Okay, so I heard you, and it sounds like you're a little bit, resistant to, or you're questioning this aspect of our program. Okay, just let me remind you that this is something that's worked for many people in your situation. In fact, I think you shared that you were, struggling with this and that your sister needs some money. Like, hey, let's do this thing to help you. Like, anyway, you take information that you got and you take your strong connection you have with them and you communicate little bits like, and we even have the ability to connect with us in Messenger in between sessions. So whenever questions come up, you can just ask questions. Plus, we have other coaches and healers in there to help you with whatever comes up, even if it's not on this topic, especially. Like, there's other experts in there to help you with other things that will come up. So I promise you'll be able to get this question answered too. And so you use little bits of the pathway, you use little bits of the understanding of their situation and your rapport. Use everything you've got, you combine it to bring them back into the vision, and you're trying to create what I call crystallization. You're trying to create a commitment where someone says yes and they put money down on their commitment. So a sale doesn't happen until someone puts money down on it, okay? And there's not just any money. Generally, they have to put the money of the lowest possible payment plan that you've got. So when they put money down on the commitment, it has to be at least as much as whatever the first payment is on your payment plan, even if it's the lowest level. If you do $500 per month for 6 months, that first payment of $500 is it. They can't just put $100 down. That doesn't count. It's the first payment plan payment, or it's the full amount, or whatever. But that's crystallization. That's the last step. And that's when it crystallizes and you've actually got the commitment. Now you've made the sale. Okay, now again, this applies whether you're doing videos or whether you're doing written word or DMs or talking to someone, talking on stage, or you're doing a live workshop, live challenge, or especially a one-to-one call. This works in all these areas. And again, this is how you communicate value in a way where people really perceive it. Okay, and so again, if you want my help with this, you can schedule a call below. I'd love to help you. And I'm a little bit mindful of time and capacity. And so even though I have more to share, I'll save that for a future video. And I look forward to working with all of you. If you'd enjoy this, please share it with friends and please schedule a call so I can talk to you. Okay, have a great day and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.